Welcome to the Emotional Revolution podcast. I'm Kayla Birch and I'm your host, and I'm here with myself today. We are doing a solo episode, and I am so excited to bring it to you because it's something that I talk so much about, and I want to talk a lot more directly about it. So, I spent my whole damn life, my whole life, up until maybe probably my late 20s. That's when I really started to shift how I perceive myself. But I spent my whole life trying to prove that I was good enough, trying to be smart enough, capable enough, thinking that if I could just make it, if I could build the business and it was successful, if I could hit those milestones, if I could stack all of my wins, if I could just keep that momentum going, then I would have felt like I finally arrived. And then I would have felt like I was finally smart enough, capable enough. Right. That is what I was always searching for. And then that's when I would finally feel worthy of the success, worthy of happiness, worthy of all the shit that I had. But none of that ever worked. I was always falling short. I was always finding the difficulties within me. I was always finding the faults. And it's because no amount of external validation, no amount of external success is ever going to fill the void that we have of not feeling like we're enough. It will just not work. We will continue to hit the wall. We will continue to search outside of us and run so far away of where we need to look, which is inside of us. Right. So no amount of external success is ever going to make you feel like you're enough. It will always make you stay on the hamster wheel. It will make you feel like no matter what you do is enough, because there's always more, because you're always seeking something that's in here. So today what we're doing is we're getting really real about why you keep chasing that validation. We want to talk about why success hasn't fixed the way you feel about yourself, even though you've tried as hard as possible to do it, and how to finally see yourself the way that you're meant to, how to finally feel and experience yourself the way that feels freeing. And the thing is, you don't need to become her, right? Or him. You're already that version of you. So you don't need to become this future version of you. You're not trying to bring in all these different things and become a different person. You already are that person. It's already here. You just need to stop hiding from it. And that's what the beliefs and the stories and the conditioning do. It makes us hide from the person we know that we are, right? And what we're capable of. So let's dive into it. There is a lie that we are sold, that we are told about success and worthiness, right? There is a lie that becomes our truth. And that is that when you achieve things, you feel good about yourself. When you achieve things, you feel confident. So for me, if I thought that if I just did more, achieved more, became more, then I'd finally feel like I was enough. I'd finally feel successful. Right? But the problem with that is that you can't prove your way into self-worth, right? You can't achieve your way into feeling good about yourself. Success doesn't fix the freaking feelings of not being good enough. It just gives you more shit to prove. Now I just proved that. Oh, but I didn't get there because of my own knowing. I didn't get there because of my own skill. Like this happened or it was just luck, right? Then we're always trying to blame it on something else instead of taking credit for our successes. Because if we don't feel good enough, it's not going to feel like it's something we deserve. If we don't feel worthy of success, I guarantee you're not going to be able to touch it. Because when it's there and when it's present, it's just not going to be enough. Oh, well, Jane made even more than I did this month, or her launch was even bigger than mine, or she has more following on YouTube. And you're just not acknowledging the growth that you've had and the courage that you've had to step up, right? We cannot prove ourselves into self-worth. And so we always have to ask that. Like, no level of external validation is ever going to fill a void, right? Only you can fill that, and only you can recognize why that void is there to begin with and what you're actually seeking. So you think it's success. You think it's the money. You think it's the accolades. You think that it's all these different things that are tied up to that, right? We're sold that bill of goods saying that that is what we're looking for and that is what makes us look good, right? We're taught this in early elementary school, that get those A's and you're going to be okay. And then when you just don't match up, then you get a B, right? Maybe even a C. Oh my gosh, definitely don't get a D, because that is just a mark of you just never going to succeed in life. And we're taught this. We're taught that we have to chase those external things and somebody else telling us how good we are, right? And that's what we have to stop believing. We have to stop believing the lie that we're not already enough, right? You don't need more success. You need to stop believing that you're not already enough. You need to stop thinking and believing that you need to become a different version of you, that something else needs to change, that there's something wrong with you, that you're broken, that you need to fix. That's not what this healing journey is about. And that's not the work that I do. Right? The work that I do is to help you realize that you've already been whole and complete. There's just a lot of shit and baggage in the way for you to experience it and for you to see it and for you to feel it and for it to be manifested into your actual life. Right? So a lot of times we chase these goals, we chase these versions of ourselves, and they become so elusive. They become so far away, and we think, oh my gosh, I'll never be that person. I'll never be that version of me because I'm just not good enough. Well, you're good enough today. You were good enough yesterday, and you were good enough 5, 10, 15, however old you are, right? You've been good enough all along. Now we have to ask ourselves, what keeps us from feeling that and experiencing that? So, what is the real reason you keep holding back? What is the real reason that you don't experience this version of you that can accept success or that feels content or that pushes themselves or celebrates themselves or really feels like they're enough? And being enough and can be such a stigma. It's such a almost a buzzword right now, like I'm enough and I have a lot of self-worth and like these different things, they become very buzzwordy and they kind of lose their meaning. They get kind of watered down that way. But really what we're talking about is that you are just operating through the world knowing that it's okay, that you're not broken, that you don't need to be anyone else but yourself. Because the more true and authentic you are to you, the higher you rise, the more those good feelings you feel, they become so much more. And so we don't need to become anyone else. We don't need 15 other certain people in the world. We need you, right? And that's what we get into. That's when we know that we are enough because we say, I have this magic and I want to share my magic with the world. And I don't need to change who I am. I need to double down on who I am. I need to believe in myself so freaking much that I'm going to double, triple, quadruple down on me and show up as that version, right? Because if you're really honest with yourself, it's not that you don't know what you want, right? It's not that you don't know what you want and how you want to experience the world. It becomes really scary for us to fully step into that version. So for me, it was really hard to allow myself to feel successful because I had a lot of stories in my mind of never being able to be successful, that was just not something that was meant for me, that I wasn't somebody who could really do much in life. And that really showed up in how I presented myself, especially in like my early 20s. And I just had I convinced myself right out of high school that I wanted to do real estate because, man, to me, that was simple. I could just go to a couple of courses and then I would take my test and I would become a real estate agent. And so I did. That's what happened. Of course, I failed the first time, but I just barely failed. And that was the thing. People had told me over and over and over that to expect to fail, that even the smartest people fail. So that wasn't unexpected for me. One, I'm not one to pass a lot of tests. I'm not very book smart in that way. And that's okay. I'm not shaming myself for that. I'm not anymore. Right. But the thing with that is that like so I went and I took it like the next day and then I passed and it was great. And I was like, oh, look at me. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. But I was hiding behind what I felt was the simple way out, right? I didn't go to college, right? And I didn't do that not because I didn't have dreams and ambitions, but I didn't allow myself to have those dreams and ambitions. Because as soon as I did, I freaking just caved in. I contracted. I wasn't good enough or smart enough to do that. And then I became really sick. And so then I wasn't even able to work. And so then I was just at home. And then I told myself, well, you're just going to be a stay-at-home wife. Like that's all that you can do, right? That's as simple as it is. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But when you think it's all you can do, you're operating out of a belief that you're not good enough or worthy enough of something else. So this isn't to say, oh, if you're a stay-at-home wife or mom, then there's something wrong with you. No, I'm saying if you're doing that because you're so scared of what it would be like if you stepped into a version of you that tried something that you wanted to do but were too scared, That's a problem because you're not doing it because you're hiding, right? You're hiding behind a belief. You're hiding behind the old stories. If I'm not ready yet, I need to be more before I can have more, right? What if people don't approve? What will people think? What if people recognize that I am as dumb as I think I am? Right? Those stories aren't protecting you. They're keeping you small. They're keeping you safe. And so what we have to really realize is that our beliefs and our decision points come from so many different expectations from others, so many different beliefs and expectations and conditioning of others, and how we keep living those stories out in our mind because they feel so much more comfortable. Right. So if we're getting to this point of where we can show up, where we can fully embrace who we are, we can really step into that version of ourselves where we trust ourselves and we validate ourselves, we first have to freaking check the stories that are being run over and over and over and over in their mind, in our minds. And so, I didn't go to college. And that's actually a really big point in my life, and a big point in my story is that I have made myself successful. I've created success in my life by not doing what other people would have considered the route to become successful. And so it's a beautiful story for me now, but before it was a failure, and it was really discouraging, especially when I stepped into a space where I was talking to people on an international global level. And it was so common for people to have gone to university, go to college, depending on where you're at in the world, what you call it. And it was such a badge of honor. And then I had a lot of clients then too that they would talk about how, if their kids just didn't go to college and they were never going to make things of themselves. And this became such a sticking point. And I had already done a lot of work on this, so I wasn't triggered by it. And it was more just laughable thinking, oh my gosh, here we are. And you're in this container, this life-changing container where I didn't go to college. And now you are so scared that your children are going to fail because they didn't. But yet here you are engaging in this life-changing behavior with me. And that was also another insight that we don't have to do things the way that other people do things. We don't have to build our success based off of what other people think success is. And we don't feel worthy and we don't like ourselves and we don't have a lot of self-worth when we base our worth into what other people say is worthy. And so what happens, the shift that has to change is that you have to start validating that worth from inside. You can't just keep looking for somebody else to tell you good job, or yes, this is right, or yes, you're on the right path, or yes, you've hit these milestones and you're finally successful, because that's just not simply how it works. And so for me, the moment that I stopped trying to become someone and I realized that I already was that version, I already was her, everything changed. Right? I wasn't trying to become somebody who had a successful business so I could be successful. I realized I already am successful. I already am capable. I already am smart. I already can do these things. Now that I know that I can, now I will. Because now I'm not always trying to do something different or be something different or become something different. I'm allowing myself to step in to the version of me that's already present. And I know that can sound a little woo-woo and it can be like, well, I don't even understand what that means, right? I get it. I get that. And I hear it, but I want you to trust that. I want you to think in your brain right now, are you trusting it or are you rejecting it? And are you rejecting it because it's scary? Because what would happen if you became that version of you right today? If you just said, forget it, I'm going to drop the stories, I'm going to drop the belief, I'm going to understand the conditioning, and I'm not going to operate out of it anymore. And I'm going to fucking be her. I'm going to show up as her. And I'm not going to hold myself back. Well, what would happen is that all of your paradigms would shatter. All of your foundations would shatter. All of the things that kept you safe, they'd be gone. It's gone, right? And so that's terrifying. That is so unknown. What do we do with that? Right? How do we do that? If everything that we've known is gone, what are we left with? Well, it might feel really scary. And I won't even say might. It's going to feel scary because now you're operating out of a space of a very expansive space. There's not these really hard boxes that you have to stay in, not these boundaries that were created by other people. Now, it's also really important that you need to create your own boundaries, right? You need to understand boundaries too. and how you show up. That's a conversation for another day. But when we show up this way, when you realize that you are already this version, you shatter all the paradigms that tell you that you're not, when you shatter the ceilings that say stay small, you're not going to make this income. And when you understand your success, when you live into that and you feel that and you breathe that and you embody that, you start to change your internal world. So confidence isn't built by proving yourself to the world. It's not, you look at your life, the more you weren't more confident, the more A's you got, right? You started to feel like, oh my God, now I have to only get A's, because now if I don't get an A and I get a B, then I'm going to crumble. Or, oh my gosh, you weren't more confident when you got 10K months. You're like, now I have to sustain this, because what will happen if I drop to 9.9.5? Like, what will happen? Because you built your confidence on proving yourself to the world. You built your confidence on other people thinking that you're successful or worthy. Right? So no, that's not what we're doing. We're bringing that confidence inside, right? It's confidence is built by showing up raw, vulnerable, unapologetic, and being yourself, and not worrying about what anybody else thinks about it, because we're not fitting into their boxes. We're not trying to, fit into their idea and their stereotype. We're not operating out of that system any longer. So it's not that you need another plan, another strategy, another chorus telling you how to be better. You really need to see yourself as you are. You need to see yourself without all the bullshit filters, without all the conditioned responses, without all the beliefs from everyone else. You need to see who you are. And you need to really see and feel and experience who you are without all the filters of who you think you need to be. And if you really examine your life and you really look at what's coming up for you, and you really look at the challenges, and you really look at your experience in life, and if you are really honest with yourself, you'll really start to realize that a lot of your ideas are built on somebody else's expectation. I did a goal setting workshop recently, and I did it twice in two different settings. And the biggest thing, we didn't come out with like, here's your 3 goals, how are we going to get them, right? We went at it like, here's your 3 goals, and why the hell do you have them? What were they built on? Were they built on fear? Were they built on lack? Are they built on you proving something to somebody else? And almost every single time, the goal was built on fear, and it was also built on trying to prove our worth to others, right? We don't even realize it, right? We don't even realize it. So we're trying to become a different version of ourselves. We're trying to become a different person, instead of realizing that we are the person that we are. We're just not seeing ourselves clearly, right? So you don't need to become somebody else. You already are the version that shows up. You already are the version that's confident. You need to start acting like it, right? You need to start acting like that confident, successful, capable version of you. And that comes with understanding the stories, understanding the reasons why you're not that, why you don't feel that embodied version today. Because you might like, I'm not her. I can't show up on social media. I don't like to speak. I'm scared. I'm so worried what other people think about me. Kayla, I am not her. Okay. You are her. You are them. You are him. You have to move through the stories. You have to drop the story that says you're not ready yet. You have to stop waiting for some imaginary permission slip, right? You have to stop waiting for something else externally to tell you that you are good enough, because it will not come. Nothing outside of you will ever feel good enough. It just won't. And it may feel good momentarily. You may be like, yeah, when I got that, acknowledgement, or I got that accolade, or I got that award, it felt great. I am good at what I do. But it's so fleeting, because those thoughts and those beliefs and those stories, they start to disrupt again. They start to filter through our head. They start to pull us down and hold us back. And it's so yucky, and it feels so and it's a fleeting feeling. But when we get honest about where we've been playing small, and when you recognize that you gain something from it, right? Because it's safer than stepping into your full power. When you recognize that staying safe in a little bubble was really beneficial for you for however long that served you, but with the awareness you have now, you realize you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay trapped in that bubble and the confinement of those beliefs, and that you can, and you are ready to step into your full power. When you embody the version of you has everything that you want, when you realize that they already exist within you, and that right now it's time to stop hiding from her, from them, from him, then everything will shift. So the practice with this is recognizing, doing a future version of yourself visualization. Look at who you want to be in the future, right? Just start to examine that. Like, so 3 years from now, how do you want to experience your life? What does it look like? What are you doing? What are the activities you're doing? What's your family environment like? What's your business environment like? What's your financial status like? Where do you live? What do you feel? What are you experiencing? Like, what is that like for you? And just allow yourself to look at that. And then when you come back to your current version today, you say, what is making me hide from her, from them, from him? What's making me hide from that version of me? What stops me from believing that that is me? And when you look at it like that and you take the comparison, not as judgment, in comparison in a way that's like, ugh, I can never do that. Or, oh, that's so much better. Oh my gosh, actually, that's not even for me. Not that type of comparison, but seeing the gap. What's the gap between where you're at today and where you want to be? And when you start to evaluate that, what you'll find is, one, like I've been saying this entire freaking episode, is that you already are that version. It's already there. You just have to start to pick apart and dissolve the beliefs that stop you from experiencing it today. It's as simple and complex as that, right? It's simple, but not easy. But that's a good practice for you. That's a practice that we can look ahead to see where we want to go, because that gives us, it lights a fire under us. But then we can say, where am I hiding today? What stops me today from experiencing that? And you can just kind of pick that apart a little bit slowly, right? You don't want to just go and dismantle the whole thing, because it gets very convoluted and it gets a little lost. So you want to say, what stops me back? What holds me back? And for me, one big thing is that I hid behind just not being capable. I hid behind that belief, that story. I mean, it was like a freaking broken record in my head. It was exhausting. And that was the one that I wanted to get rid of first. I wanted to remove the stories that I was stupid and that I was not smart enough. And I wanted to explore what would happen if I was. What would happen if I did think I was smart enough or capable enough? What would then happen? And a lot of that was acceptance to, some potential limitations I had in my abilities. But the potential limitations didn't outweigh my ability to succeed. And so it's not being like, I'm now the smartest person in the room. That's not what we're doing. We're saying, I may not be smart in this area, right? I may not be your traditional book smart, but I am so fucking smart in this area. I am so capable in this area. I have so much emotional intelligence, and I can see and feel and experience people in a way that is just not always there. That is where I am incredibly gifted and skilled. Now, what do I do with that? How do I leverage that? Right? What does that look like for me? How do I use that in my life, in my business? And let me focus on that skill and know that there's some other things that I'm challenged with. Okay, great, fine. My weaknesses are not going to overshadow my strengths. Not any day of the week. They just will not. And so when you recognize them and you accept them, right? Because if I just kept rejecting that I wasn't book smart, or this perceived smart, or these expectations of society, like societal smart, then that's all I could have focused on. And that didn't get better. I'm still not that today. And so I would have just been stuck in that cycle. So it's accepting it and letting it be present while you focus on what you are good at, while you focus and you double, triple, quadruple down on your skill. When you believe that you're already that future version that you're dreaming of, and you start to experience them a little bit more each day, and a little part of you becomes a little more connected to that version. Not because you're gaining something else from an external source, but because you're generating it from within, because it's already present. It's already here, right? So that's what we're stepping into. That's the belief we're stepping into. So you feel that worthiness, you feel that acceptance, you feel that generation from within. And it's so amazing when we step into that. right? And it always comes down to this simple thing of releasing your stories, of doing the work, right? Such a beautiful process. So just remember, this isn't about becoming someone new. That's not what we're doing. It's about stripping away absolutely everything that made you forget who the hell you are in the first place. That is all this work is about. Right? It's about coming home to yourself. It's about removing all the cobwebs and the beliefs and the stories that keep us from experiencing the absolute beautiful, beautiful person that we are and that the world deserves to see and experience and hear, right? That's what this work does. All right. So if this episode hit home with you, DM me right now on Instagram, Kayla Birch. You can also find us on the Emotional Revolution podcast over on Instagram as well. But I want to hear from you. What hit home? What was your takeaway? If you're watching on YouTube, you can also comment below. So drop a comment and let me know what you're taking away and what really landed with you. What insight are you walking away with, right? So tell me, what's the story you're finally letting go of? It's such a beautiful process. When we let go of stories, when we see ourselves clearly, when we let go of conditioning, our whole world changes. And like I always like to say, we are creating that wealth, that success from the inside out. It doesn't come from the outside in, right? Wealth is generated from inside out. So that's what we're doing, right? And if you're ready to continue this work, I have a wait list for the shift room, right? We're doing this work every single day. You hear from me every single day, right? You get a training from me every single day on your mindset, your business, so many different things. So I'll drop the link below. You don't have to figure this out alone, right? I'm here to support you. There's a whole community here to support you. And I'm just so grateful for you listening to this podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, do all the things that help support the podcast and the channel. And I just appreciate you so much. And just remember, you don't need more validation. You need to trust yourself enough to move without it. See you next week.